Yeah. Yo, what's up, guys? It's me, Tyrael VR, with Kiki H today. Hi. Hey, hold on. I can't make that bigger. And today we are reacting to Movie Flames characters from Harry Potter that didn't get sorted into Hogwarts houses, which he thinks they should be in. And I really like watching Movie Flame. He makes great content. Like, it's great. Alright, 3, 2, 1, let's start.
A while back, I made a video resorting characters into a different house.
Yeah.
But today, I'm going to look at characters who were not sorted in the books. There were actually way more of these than I thought. I was surprised that I put together a list of 35 different characters. Today though, we're gonna make those 35 characters have a house. If you like this video, hit that like button. It will greatly help the channel with the algorithm. And if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button, and you can also follow me on my socials. All of that is linked down below. Before we start the video, I want to thank today's sponsor, Displate. Displate is about collecting your passions and getting inspired.
Yeah.
It's a one-of-a-kind metal poster. It's passion
Guys, let's
printed
just
on metal.
skip the sponsor.
This allows
No one likes the sponsors.
their brand shop. And they also have the same
God.
for Marvel, DC, Avatar The Last Airbender. Value bravery, daring, nerve, and
this is
chivalry.
Gryffindor.
Moving on to Slytherin, they value ambition, leadership, self-preservation, cunning, and resourcefulness. For Ravenclaw, they value intelligence, knowledge, curiosity, creativity, and wit. And finally, Hufflepuff. They value hard work, dedication, patience, loyalty, and fair play. So now that we know the qualities that each house represents, let's start sorting some Harry Potter characters. We'll start with Rita Skeeter. I think that Rita would be in Slytherin.
Yeah,
her cunning and resourcefulness is off the chart, as she illegally became an animagus that turns into a beetle without anyone knowing, which is not only incredibly difficult to do, but it's also impressive that she kept this a secret as long as she did while being in so many important people's company. She used this ability to get stories, literally being a fly, or in this case, a beetle on the wall. On top of that, her self-preservation is obvious, as she only cares about herself, her fame, and her writing, even if that means destroying someone else's life on what a lot of the time has a basis of lies.
Yeah,
and
I don't
this
like
sort of
Rita
goes hand in
Skeeter.
hand
Rita
with the
Skeeter
evilness that's associated with the
I just don't
Slytherin
like her.
house. She really is evil at times. Next, we have Bathilda Bagshot.
I think she would be
Bathilda was
Ravenclaw.
the author of the most famous book of all time in the Wizarding World, A History of Magic. This, to me, makes her a clear Ravenclaw, as she showed off her intelligence and knowledge to put that book together. She also showed off her curiosity for history and her creativity to put all of that history together in an interesting way for readers. Next, we have Barty Crouch Sr. And to me, Barty Crouch Sr. is an obvious Slytherin. His ambition made him an absent father, as he was obsessed with rising in the ranks of the Ministry. His cunning and resourcefulness allowed him to be successful while he was trying to rise. And his leadership was very clear, as he got very close to the top, most people believing he was going to be the next Minister of Magic before his son's trial. Meaning many people saw him capable of having the biggest leadership job you can have in the Wizarding World. Moving from father to son, we have Barty Crouch Jr., who I believe is also a Slytherin.
Yeah, he would definitely be a Slytherin.
This is not only because he's a Death Eater, but also because him taking over for Mad Eye and making everyone believe he was really the ex-Auror checks off almost every box for a Slytherin, especially resourcefulness and cunning. He literally fooled Dumbledore, making him think he was one of Dumbledore's oldest friends. Next is Ariana Dumbledore. Ariana never had a chance to go to Hogwarts, given the fact that she was an Obscurus.
I think she would be
But if I had to place her in a house, I would say she's a Hufflepuff.
Ah.
The little that we know about her told us that she was loyal to her family, and we also know that she believed in fair play, as she hated when her brothers fought, which ultimately led to her death, as she tried to put a stop to the duel that would take her life. Moving from sister to brother, we have Aberforth Dumbledore.
Aberforth Gryffindor.
Can you take care of the babies?
What the heck? Oh my god.
And I believe that Aberforth would be in Gryffindor just like his older brother. He showed insane bravery, daring, and nerve when standing up to Grindelwald, and even more when starting a duel with Grindelwald, who he knew was much older, much more powerful than he was, and had every advantage. And he also showed off his affinity for chivalry and a little bit more of bravery, as he told Albus and Gellert that what they were planning to do, which was take over the world, was wrong. Mundungus Fletcher.
Mundungus
is a clear Slytherin.
Yeah.
His thievery showed off ambition,
He shouldn't even
cunning,
be in
and
the Order of the
resourcefulness.
Phoenix. He should
On top of that, when you think of
like, sealed up
Mundungus,
in
you immediately
Azkaban.
think of selfishness. And selfishness obviously goes hand in hand with
He shouldn't be in the
self-preservation,
Order
a
of the
very
Phoenix.
common Slytherin trait. And he
I
not
don't
only
know
showed
why
this with his
Dumbledore
line of
thinks he
work,
should be
but
in the
also
Order.
when he abandoned Moody during the Battle of Seven Potters, saving himself and in turn killing Moody. Next, we have Kingsley Shacklebolt.
Kingsley, definitely
And I
a
would say
Gryffindor.
that Kingsley is a Gryffindor.
He was like
As an
the best
Auror, you have to have a lot of
Mad-Eye
bravery,
Moody
daring,
then.
nerve,
Or
and also
Alistair
chivalry
Moody.
as you fight for what's right as essentially the wizard police. Kingsley was one of the best Aurors, taking on some of the most dangerous tasks, which really makes me think that he would don the red and gold.
Kingsley Shacklebolt.
Fenrir Greyback.
Fenrir? Definitely
Fenrir is
Slytherin.
obviously a Slytherin. He is
He's
pure evil
literally
for
more
one,
evil than
but he also
Voldemort.
only cared about himself,
Ew,
not giving the
ew.
children he bid even
He
a
literally
second thought.
ate
He was also
humans
very
when he was
ambitious
in his
too,
human
as he
form,
formed an
and
army
not
of
a
werewolves
werewolf.
to take over the Wizarding World, which also shows off that leadership trait that Slytherins are so known for having. His cunning and resourcefulness also allowed him to have a very powerful backing using very messed up means, essentially trying to turn as many people into a werewolf as possible. Next, we have Ludo Bagman.
I don't
Ludo
know
was
who
not in the
Ludo
movie,
Bagman
so I'll
is.
quickly go over his backstory here just for those who have only seen the movies.
Yeah,
he
I've
was a very
only seen the
successful
movies. I've
pro
read a
Quidditch
little bit of
player,
the
but he was
Fox
not the
version.
brightest, as he accidentally passed secret ministry information to a
Oh.
Death Eater, which
I'd
he
say
stood on
Slytherin
trial
then.
for, but was found to be innocent. He also had a lot of
no.
money troubles when gambling, and he was
Oh.
notorious for not paying people what he owed them,
Slytherin.
including the goblins. And not paying the goblins actually screwed the Order of the Phoenix over, as they were not able to get the goblins on their side, solely because of what Ludo did. Because of Ludo, they distrusted humans so much that they said, screw both sides, we're not getting involved. On top of that, he was a terrible head of the Department of Magical Games and Sports, as he had terrible security
not
and
Slytherin
protocol
now.
for the
Slytherins
Quidditch
have
World Cup.
leadership.
Looking at all of this, Bagman is not cunning or
Yep.
good at leadership, eliminating Slytherin.
Not
He's not
Ravenclaw.
loyal or fair, eliminating
Not
Hufflepuff. And he's not intelligent or
Oh my God, they're
knowledgeable,
putting him
so
in
Ravenclaw
Gryffindor.
is out too. That leaves Gryffindor, so I'm going to put Ludo in Gryffindor. Let's be
Okay,
honest,
that's the one
it's
I
pretty
disagree
brave
with.
and daring to take money from
Oh,
people
yeah,
knowing
it's
that you
true.
are not going to pay them back.
Take
Especially
two,
such
stop
powerful
being so
people like the
close, or else your
goblins who
eyes are gonna
literally
get
run
so-
the money in the
No.
Wizarding World. I just listed 3 out of the 4 Gryffindor traits that all fit with Ludo. So he's not your classic Gryffindor, but to
He is
me,
a Gryffindor.
he is a Gryffindor. Next is Alphius Doge.
Gryffindor.
Alphius was Dumbledore's best friend while at Hogwarts, which immediately makes me say he was a Gryffindor because that's what house Dumbledore was in. But if that's not enough proof for you, he also showed off many Gryffindor traits when joining the Order of the Phoenix in both the First and Second Wizarding War, something that takes a lot of bravery. Moving to another one of Dumbledore's
Nicholas
oldest friends,
Flamel.
we have
He
Nicholas
has to be
Flamel.
Ravenclaw. He made the
Flamel, the
Philosopher's
creator
Stone.
of the Philosopher's Stone, or if you're from America, the Sorcerer's Stone, is a
Definitely not.
shoo-in for
I like
Ravenclaw.
Philosophers more than
He was the
Sorcerers.
only known maker of the
'Cause it's
stone
not a
that
sorcerer.
gave him immortality, a feat that takes every trait
Oh. All right.
Ravenclaw has: intelligence, knowledge, curiosity, wit, and honestly so much more, because this man might be the smartest mind the Wizarding World had ever seen. Now we get to Igor Karkaroff.
Yeah, Igor
He did not
Karkaroff's
go to
Slytherin.
Hogwarts, but he was a Death Eater, which immediately makes me think that he's a
Igor
Slytherin.
Karkaroff didn't
But
go
that's
to
a cop-out
Hogwarts?
answer, so let me give you more proof.
Okay, so he
This
probably
is
went to
backed by his
Durmstrang.
self-preservation, both when ratting all of the Death Eaters out after Voldemort's fall, also that he could be released, and also when he cheated in the Triwizard Tournament so that his school could win. And on top of that, he also showed off leadership as he ran Durmstrang Institute. Moving from one character who did not go to Hogwarts to another, we have Fleur Delacour. I'm going to say that Fleur is a Hufflepuff. She worked very hard and showed a lot of dedication when learning English and earning a spot in the workforce in another country. But the thing that really made me put her in Hufflepuff was her loyalty. She had insane loyalty when she stayed with Bill Weasley even after his handsome face had been mauled and, quoting the book, now looked grotesque. She stayed by his side, never even wavering for a second. That right there is the true loyalty of a Hufflepuff. Marvolo Gaunt. Marvolo,
Obviously,
the
it's
grandfather
him.
of Lord Voldemort, is a clear choice for
He
Slytherin.
was literally
Not only is he a direct
an
descendant of
ancestor of
Salazar
Salazar
Slytherin himself,
Slytherin.
but he also had the very rare ability to speak to snakes, the mascot of the house. On top of that, he only cared about himself and his blood purity, showing a ton of self-preservation. This even went as far as having deformed children due to incest, just to keep his precious bloodline pure. And speaking of the deformed children, we have Marvolo's son, Morphin Gaunt, who I also think would be a Slytherin. He's also a descendant of Salazar Slytherin, and he too has the ability to speak to the house's mascot. Morphin also hates muggles, especially the father of his nephew Tom Riddle Sr., who Morphin actually got in trouble for going after with magic, so ideals having to do with blood purity is checked off as well. And moving on to the last of the Gaunts, we have Morphin's sister Merope Gaunt. And I think she is also a Slytherin, but for very different reasons. She showed off a lot of cunning and resourcefulness, as she not only stole her father's heirlooms and ditched him, but she also hoodwinked her muggle crush Tom Riddle Sr., who had no interest in her, and she made him be with her and get her impregnated when she gave him love potion over and over again. Which is also pretty freaking evil, just date raping this dude, but not just for one night, but for months. That evilness is another reason why I think she should be in Slytherin. Looking at Nymphadora Tonks' father, we have Ted Tonks.
Yeah.
And I was pretty shocked about this one, because all the fan art of Ted has him in Hufflepuff clothes, but it was never actually stated what house he was in. However, I'll have to agree with the fans. I too think that he is a Hufflepuff. I think this mainly because of his loyalty to his family and his affinity for always doing the right thing, which of course plays into the fair play trait that Hufflepuffs have. I was pretty shocked that Alistair Mad-Eye Moody had not been sorted in the books.
Alistair is definitely a Gryffindor.
He's a Gryffindor.
Definitely.
He was the greatest Auror of all time.
As soon as the
feat
Sorting
that
Hat
could
hit his
only
head,
be
he
done
would be a
through insane
Gryffindor.
bravery, daring, nerve, and chivalry. Every trait that Gryffindors
imagine
have.
Mad-Eye studied
Chivalry
in
is one thing I want to
Slytherin.
focus on though, as Barty Crouch Sr. gave all of the Aurors permission to use the normally illegal, unforgivable curses, but Moody refused to do this unless absolutely necessary, only having to use it one time while he was facing double the amount of enemies that all of the other Aurors were. Next is Amos Diggory, and he was a tough one, but
Slytherin. What is this? I hate ads. Sorry
But I
about
think
that.
I came to the conclusion that he's a Slytherin. I say this because he was obsessed with his and his son's image, always trying to make it out that Cedric was the best, which I think shows a lot of self-preservation. I would also argue that he lived vicariously through his son, and doing that allowed him to have traits of ambition, always wanting Cedric to be the best, even when Cedric himself didn't necessarily strive for this. On top of that, he was a little racist with the way he handled the interaction with Winky the house elf after the Dark Mark went up, which is another thing common with Slytherins. A lot of them are racist. I'm pairing Alice and Frank Longbottom up together, and I'm saying that they're both Gryffindors. They were both Aurors and both joined the Order of the Phoenix, both of which shows off Gryffindor traits of being brave. And on top of that, they showed insane bravery while being tortured so badly that they slipped into a vegetative state of madness. Also, the way they were remembered after losing their minds had a very Gryffindor-esque vibe, everybody remembering them for almost all of the Gryffindor traits. Now we have Cornelius Fudge, and he was another character I was surprised wasn't sorted, but he is a definite for Slytherin. He was at the top of leadership as the Minister of Magic, which checks off the leadership trait. But the main thing that made me place him here was his obsession with looking good to the public, even if that meant making up lies about Harry and Dumbledore, and ignoring that Voldemort was back, putting all the lives of the entire Wizarding World above his own ego and persona, which shows an insane amount of self-preservation. To add to that, he was also racist, as he immediately blamed Maxime, a half-giant, for the attack that happened on the edge of the Forbidden Forest. Now we have Nagini, and this was a tough one. She seemed to be two completely different people in the Fantastic Beasts films and in the original series, and unfortunately with the Fantastic Beasts movies being cancelled, we'll never see how her character transitioned that way. In Fantastic Beasts, I'd say she belonged in Hufflepuff because she was so loyal and patient with Credence and wanted the world to be fair to him. Then again though, she turned into a freaking lunatic obsessed with killing while at Voldemort's side. Personally, I believe that Voldemort controlling the part of his soul inside of her because she was a Horcrux made her more evil. And before you say, why didn't that happen to Harry, I have an explanation. Harry did have a part of Voldemort's soul in him, but Voldemort never knew about that, so Voldemort never tried to control that part of him that was inside of Harry the way he did with Nagini. So with all of that being said, I would say that Nagini is a Hufflepuff, because I think that her in the Fantastic Beasts films was the true Nagini. Next we have Stan Shunpike, a pretty random character. Stan does not have that much ambition or cunning, he's not intelligent or knowledgeable, and he's not brave or daring. So I guess you would have to go into Hufflepuff, which actually throws it back to the very early days of Hogwarts, because back then, the other three founders, Gryffindor, Slytherin, and Ravenclaw, were very selective about their students, and the kind Hufflepuff took in those kids that the others shunned because they didn't meet their standards. So had Hufflepuff still been alive, she definitely would have adopted Stan the way she did with all of the other unwanted children. Next, we have Augustus Rookwood, and I think he would be a Slytherin, and not just because he was a Death Eater. He had a lot of ambition, as he gained one of the most elusive jobs that the Ministry had to offer, being an unspeakable in the Department of Mysteries. He also showed a lot of cunning and resourcefulness to be able to work in the Ministry while really being loyal to Voldemort and passing loads of secretive information to the Death Eaters without anyone in the Ministry knowing. Karkaroff snitching on him was the only thing that really stopped him from doing this.
Augustus Rookwood, of the Department of Mysteries.
Yeah, the same.
Rufus Scrimgeour. I think Rufus Scrimgeour would be a Gryffindor. I thought about putting him in Slytherin because of his leadership skills, as he was head of the Auror Office and then became Minister of Magic. But I think Gryffindor fits him much, much better. Not only is he described to look like a lion, the mascot for Gryffindor with his wild hair that made him look like he had a mane, but he was also an incredibly brave character, not only during his time as an Auror, but also in his final act. He was captured and brutally tortured by Voldemort himself, Voldemort trying to get Scrimgeour to tell him where Harry Potter was, but Scrimgeour refused, which ultimately led to a ton of torturing and ultimately his death. That final act is the definition of a true Gryffindor. Next is Corbin Yaxley, and I would say that he's a Slytherin. He showed great cunning, resourcefulness, and self-preservation as he not only evaded capture after the First Wizarding War and after Voldemort's downfall, but even after being captured at the end of the Half-Blood Prince, he escaped mere weeks later, infiltrated the Ministry of Magic, and was one of the key players in setting up Voldemort's coup of the Ministry. That shows insane ambition, cunning, resourcefulness, and every other Slytherin trait, honestly. Next, we have Poppy Pomfrey, and Madame Pomfrey is a clear choice for Ravenclaw, as her thirst for intelligence and knowledge in the field of magical medicine made her an incredible matron. And I'd also say that creativity and curiosity falls under there as well, as she creatively always found a solution to any sick students brought in, and her curiosity broadened her knowledge as she learned more and more to make her a better matron. On top of that, she has a very Ravenclaw-esque trait, as she judged others based on their knowledge, as she was very happy to finally have Lupin as the DA teacher because he knew his stuff, talking about Lupin knowing to give Harry chocolate after the Dementor attack. Next is Astoria Greengrass. Astoria was Draco's wife and the mother of Draco's son Scorpius Malfoy. I'm going to say that Astoria is a Slytherin, but she's a very interesting Slytherin. Part of her story is that she turned her back on her family's blood purity ideals after the Battle of Hogwarts, which tells me that the rest of her family was in Slytherin, meaning she probably was too. Especially because it says she turned back, meaning she too had those blood purity ideals at one point. Next, we have Victor Krum, and I would say that Krum is a Gryffindor. He showed insane bravery, daring, and nerve while playing Quidditch, as he literally got his nose broken and was gushing blood, but still played on and caught the snitch in the World Cup. And the same goes for even entering the Triwizard Tournament and facing all of the obstacles that were thrown at him. That takes a lot of bravery. He's also very different from most other Durmstrang students, most of whom have more Slytherin beliefs. Meanwhile, Krum has a more Gryffindor-esque view of the world. Antonin Dolohov is next. Dolohov killed both of Molly Weasley's twin brothers, Fabian and Gideon, and he also killed Remus Lupin. So he's about as bad as they come, meaning he's a shoo-in for Slytherin. Looking at how successful he was as a murderer, it shows off a lot of cunning and resourcefulness, and he had a great deal of ambition to please his master, Lord Voldemort. Next, we have Augusta Longbottom, who is Neville Longbottom's grandmother, and she is one brave badass. I'm going to just tell you one story, and I promise you by the end of it, you will agree with me that she belongs in Gryffindor. When Neville had been rebelling at Hogwarts, they tried to punish him by going after his gran. They sent a confunded John Dawlish, who is a literal Auror, some of the most powerful wizards in the world. And instead of giving in to Dawlish, Augusta bravely fought back, and she sent his ass packing, as she hurt him so badly that he had to check into St. Mungo's Hospital for his injuries. That tears it. Augusta is a true Gryffindor. Walden McNair. McNair is definitely a Slytherin. He had great cunning and resourcefulness to not only fool the Ministry, making them think he was innocent of all of the dark deeds he did as a Death Eater during the First Wizarding War, but even more than that, he manipulated them even more to get a freaking job at the Ministry. And last, but certainly not least, we have Gellert Grindelwald. He did not go to Hogwarts and was actually kicked out of Durmstrang, which is wild because they actively promote and teach the dark arts there. But had Grindelwald gone to Hogwarts, I think he would have been sorted into Slytherin.
Yeah,
He had
he would
insane
be.
ambition and leadership skills to become the tyrant he later became, and his cunning and resourcefulness could fall under that category as well, because it's not easy to gain such a loyal following when what you're doing is so insanely wrong. And he of course has self-preservation, as he literally wanted to rule the world. That's about as selfish and self-obsessed as it comes. And there it is, 35 Harry Potter characters that were not sorted.
Alright guys, that's it for today's video. Remember to like and subscribe. Bye!